Hello, this is Mr. Kashmir. This is going to be a very brief lecture video on sequencing and summarizing Hamlet. Each student is going to receive a packet that will look just like this. What it is it's a chart that will allow you to map out every single scene in Hamlet. You'll have a similar chart for backwards and forwards, although it will be less detailed and shorter because, of course, backwards and forward is much simpler and shorter than Hamlet. There are, in this packet, 6 columns. The act and scene is written here in the first column for you already. The major characters, that is a column in which you will list the major characters in the scene. The major events is the column in which you will write down what are the most important things that happened in each scene. The plot structure column, you will just circle one of the 5 plot elements for every scene. So if a scene occurs during stasis, you will circle stasis. If a scene occurs during the rising action, you will circle rising action. If a scene actually is the climax, then obviously you'll circle climax, and so on and so forth. As for major quotes, you're going to pick 2 to 3 quotes from each scene that you thought were most important and list them here. And then in major quotes explained, you're going to explain those quotes in the final column. What this chart packet is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to sequence, and summarize Hamlet. So by sequence, I mean you're putting everything in order. Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 2, and then even within the scene, you're putting things in order. The first event in the scene, the second event in the scene, etc. And by summarizing, what I mean is you're retelling the most important and crucial elements. You're not telling the whole story word for word, you're retelling the most important and crucial elements. So here's the example from Act 1, Scene 1 that I've already filled in, and I just want to point you to some of the most important elements so that you can do a good job on this. So Act 1, Scene 1, again, that's already filled in for you. If you don't know Roman numerals, this is probably a good time to learn them, by the way. Roman numerals are kind of a big deal. Roman numeral, the big I is Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, IV is Act 4, V alone is Act 5, okay? And what are the other ones you need to know? You need to know the little ones too. So the scenes are Scene 1, Scene 2 is 2 I's, Scene 3 is 3 I's, Scene 4 is IV, meaning 1 before 5, Scene 5 is V, Scene 6 is VI, meaning 1 after 5, 5 plus 1 is 6, and then VII would be Scene 7. So if you're ever having trouble with Roman numerals, it's definitely something you want to check out. Anyway, pretty quickly here, the major characters in the first scene are Horatio, Bernardo, Marcellus, and the ghost. Notice that Francisco happens to appear in the first scene, but he's not that important, right? He's the guard who's being let off duty and he leaves. And I don't need to include every person, only the most important characters. That's why this heading of this section is major characters, not all characters, okay? The major events. Usually a good idea to list roughly 5 events and to number them the way that I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll help guide your thinking. Rarely will there be a scene that has more than 5 major events. And remember, that word major meaning most important. Not all events, just most important. So try to limit yourself to 5. Mine are Bernardo and Marcellus tell Horatio about the ghost, but he doesn't believe them. Notice I've totally left off Bernardo entering and him meeting Marcellus. I've left off Bernardo entering and meeting Francisco because it's really not that important. It's just when he comes on stage. My second most major event is the first appearance of the ghost. He appears and then he disappears. Then Horatio explains about Hamlet and Fortinbras. This is kind of a big deal. It sets the stage for a lot of the rest of the play. By the way, this is what's called exposition. It always happens during the beginning of the play, and it's when a character reveals a bunch of important information. He's technically talking to the guardsmen, but really that information is intended for the audience to hear. You have to know that King Hamlet killed King Fortinbras in order to understand what's about to happen throughout the rest of the play. Then number 4, the ghost appears again and disappears. That's the second time. And then number 5, Horatio goes to tell the prince about the ghost. So that's my summary. And what I've done is I've taken the 5 most important events. Let's shoot for 5 every time out. Not 4, not 2, and certainly not 6 or 7. Where in the plot structure does the scene take place? Circle 1. This is stasis. Remember, stasis is always the way the play begins. It's some state of equilibrium. Now, the state of equilibrium in Denmark is a fragile one, right? We have this new king. He's married the old queen. We have Prince Fortinbras is out to get revenge. So it's a rough time in Denmark, but that is how the play starts. And it could conceivably go on like this for days, weeks, months, or even years without changing. And so this is the stasis in which we find ourselves at the beginning of the play. The last 2 columns ask for the major quotes, and the major quotes to then be explained. So I picked 2 quotes from Horatio, and the ones that I picked were, "This bodes some strange eruption to our state, and if thou art privy to thy country's fate, which happily for knowing may avoid, O speak." And then I explained them here. So Horatio thinks that the appearance of the ghost is a bad omen for the state of Denmark. That's probably a big deal. Considering that the main character is the Prince of Denmark and that his dead father appears to be coming back as a ghost, maybe that's a big deal, right? Him saying that this is a bad sign for the state of Denmark, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say that that's a big deal. And that's why I've taken it as a major quote. The other major quote that I selected is, "If thou art privy to thy country's fate, which happily for knowing may avoid, O speak." And this, again, it relates to the fate of Denmark. It's him talking to the ghost and begging the ghost to share what it knows in order that Denmark may avoid some horrible fate. So he's saying, like, "Ghost, if you know something about our future, tell us what it is so that we can save our country." Notice that the 2 quotes I chose both relate to the ghost, both relate to the state of Denmark, and because of that, they are both major, right? I haven't picked a quote like, "Oh, you're here on time," or "Bernardo, is that you?" Right? I picked a quote that deals with the big things in the play. And so far, the big things are the appearance of the ghost and the fate of the country. So this is what my expectation looks like with sequencing and summarizing. I want your sequencing and summarizing to be of the same quality as mine is, if not better. And my expectation is that you'll have a few minutes each week to work on filling in the boxes in this chart. I will not collect or grade this until the day of your Unit 1 final. You may choose to fill out this chart as you read. So each night when you read a new scene, you may do the chart right then. You may choose to work in class. You may choose to do some combination. It really is going to be entirely up to you.